Imagine this, a moment when everything in your life just starts working. You feel calm, confident, clear. Not because your circumstances suddenly changed, but because your mind did. You've probably been told to control your thoughts, stay positive, or stop overthinking, but no one tells you how. What if I told you the problem isn't just your thoughts? What if the real issue is that you've been living as a slave to your mind, when in fact you were created to lead it? Most people walk through life overwhelmed, anxious, and distracted, not because they're weak, but because they're disconnected from the full system Allah gave them. You have not one, but three minds. One in your gut, one in your head, one in your heart. When these three are in harmony, you feel grounded and alive. But when they're out of sync, you feel lost, like you're living someone else's life. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to stop overthinking, how to break free from anxiety, and how to align yourself with your true nature, the one designed by the Creator. And no, this isn't based on trendy self-help or shallow affirmations. This is rooted in timeless Islamic wisdom, real-life experience, and how Allah describes the inner self in the Qur'an. Because once your mind becomes your friend, everything else in your life, your focus, your choices, even your faith, begins to flow. Let's be real. Most people are fighting a war they don't even know they're in, a silent battle, not against the world, but against themselves. From the moment they wake up, they're overwhelmed by mental noise, regret from the past, fear of the future, judgment from others, guilt, shame, overthinking. It feels normal, but it's not. It's spiritual suffocation. Here's what you need to know. You were never designed to live entirely in your head. Allah created your body with three powerful centers of consciousness. Your head, where thoughts form. Your gut, where desires and instincts live. Your heart, the seat of your soul and your connection to peace. Each one has a voice, and each one plays a different role. But what happens when one voice, the head, drowns out the others? You get caught in loops, you replay mistakes. You feel anxious, confused, unsure of who you are. That's not failure. That's imbalance. You were never meant to live life only through logic. You were meant to live from alignment. The Quran gives us incredible insight into this inner design. Allah describes three types of nafs or selves that exist within you. 1. Nafs al-amara, the commanding self, gut. This is the part of you that pushes you to act without thinking. It wants comfort, pleasure, control. It says, eat that. Watch that, do that. It's not evil, but if left unchecked, it will lead you to addiction and regret. 2. Nafs al-lawwama, the guilty self, head. This is your inner critic. It kicks in after you've done something wrong. It whispers, "You're such a failure. Why did you do that?" It keeps you stuck in cycles of guilt, overanalysis, and shame. 3. Nafs al-mutma'inna, the peaceful self, heart. This is the real you, the calm, centered, aware self that's aligned with Allah. When this self is active, you don't want to sin. You don't crave the addiction. You feel fulfilled, not frantic. And here's the truth. Most people live their whole lives between the gut and the head, swinging between desire and guilt, indulgence and regret. But very few activate the heart. And without the heart, the soul remains in darkness. Overthinking isn't just a habit. It's a symptom, a signal that something deeper is out of balance. Think of your inner world like a home with three rooms, the gut, the head, and the heart. But imagine if you spent your entire life locked in just one room, the mind, while the other two are neglected, dark, and dusty. That's what most of us are doing. We've been taught to overvalue logic, thoughts, and planning, and ignore our body and spirit. And the result? A noisy mind that never shuts off. When you live entirely in your head, every small mistake feels massive. Every silence feels awkward. Every look from someone feels like judgment. But the mind wasn't designed to carry everything alone. Overthinking comes when your gut is cluttered and your heart is closed. Let me explain. Your gut, or nafs al-amara, is the place of desires. It's where unhealthy cravings begin. It's where you're tempted by food, lust, distractions. And when your gut is inflamed, literally or spiritually, it sends confusing signals upward to the brain. Your mind gets overwhelmed trying to process all those impulses. It begins to spin, and that spinning becomes anxiety, shame, or paralysis. Now pair that with a heart that's unawakened, a heart that hasn't been fed by remembrance, prayer, or reflection, and you're left with a machine that can only malfunction. Overthinking isn't the core issue, it's the outcome of disconnection. Disconnection from your body, disconnection from your soul, disconnection from the one who designed you. But the beautiful part is, the moment you reconnect truly, gently, consistently, your mind doesn't need to be fixed. It naturally begins to quiet down, just like a car engine that calms once the oil is clean. Your thoughts begin to soften once your gut is clear and your heart is alive. And that's why this isn't about forcing yourself to stop thinking. It's about cleansing what's fueling your thoughts. It's about healing at the source, not the surface. The Prophet said, "There is a piece of flesh in the body. If it is sound, the whole body is sound. If it is corrupted, the whole body is corrupted. Truly it is the heart." Bukhari and Muslim. Your healing begins here. And when the heart starts to light up again, the mind follows it, not the other way around. Let me tell you a story, a real moment that changed how I understand the mind. A few weeks ago I was driving fast, as I usually do. I was running late to meet someone important, and I didn't want to waste time. I cut across a lane quickly to avoid missing my turn. And I came this close to hitting the car beside me. Alhamdulillah, I didn't. But in that instant, I felt all eyes on me. The car beside me honked. The driver looked annoyed. I knew I'd made a bad move. Then I reached the red light and sat there, feeling completely exposed. You know that feeling? Where you know you messed up, even if nothing technically happened and your mind starts attacking you. That's what happened to me. I could feel it coming. That was reckless. Everyone saw it. They're staring at you. You're an embarrassment. The inner spiral began. But then, I remembered what I'm telling you now. I paused. I stopped breathing shallow. And I shifted my awareness. I literally moved it. From my head down to my chest and deeper down to my belly. And just like that, everything changed. The noise in my head shut off. The anxiety disappeared. I wasn't thinking about how I looked. I wasn't replaying the moment. I was just here, present, grounded. And then something funny happened. A guy in the car behind me leaned out of his window and shouted something positive. Something like, "That was smooth, bro. I couldn't believe it." My mind had painted a story of guilt, shame, and judgment. But the reality? It was fine. Better than fine. That's when I realized, your mind lies. When you're stuck in it, it becomes your enemy. But when you pull your awareness downward, to your body, to your breath, to your center, you access a deeper intelligence. A place where you're not overthinking anymore. You're feeling. You're being. And what's amazing is this. You can do that anytime. You can do it at a red light, at work, in a conversation. When you make a mistake, when you feel overwhelmed. It takes a few seconds, but it rewires your whole reaction. You move from shame to calm, from panic to clarity. Because that gut, that heart, it doesn't attack you. It doesn't criticize you. It doesn't tell stories. It knows. That moment taught me that peace is always available. It's just not found in the mind. There's a reason Allah commands us to fast. And it's not just for hunger. It's not just to feel what the poor feel. It's deeper than that. Fasting is a reset. Not just for the stomach, but for the soul. Let me explain. Earlier, we talked about the gut, the nafs al-amara, the commanding self. It's the part of you that pushes you toward cravings. And in a world filled with sugar, dopamine, distractions, and indulgence, this part becomes inflamed, both physically and spiritually. You know what happens when you constantly give in to urges? The gut starts sending false signals to the brain. Eat more. Scroll more. Watch more. You need this to feel good. The brain gets overwhelmed, and you fall into patterns of addiction, regret, and confusion. And eventually, overthinking becomes the background noise of your life. But when you fast, you interrupt that pattern. You break the chain. Think about it. During Ramadan or any time you fast, your cravings weaken, your thoughts become quieter. Your heart begins to feel softer, more present. Even your prayers feel deeper. That's not a coincidence. That's by design. Even modern science confirms it. Fasting reduces inflammation. It heals the gut lining. It resets hormones. It improves clarity, focus, and emotional regulation. But for us as Muslims, it goes beyond biology. Allah tells us in the Qur'an, "O you who believe, fasting has been prescribed for you as it was prescribed to those before you, that you may attain taqwa." Surah Al-Baqarah 2-183. Taqwa, God consciousness, doesn't come from just knowing information. It comes from detaching from the lower self, so you can rise to your higher self. That's what fasting does. When you fast, you pause indulgence. You humble your gut. You awaken the heart, and you invite the mind to relax. Think of your body like a tree. If the roots, the gut, are dirty or clogged, the branches, your mind, can't grow healthy leaves. But when you water the roots with discipline and purification, everything else blossoms. So if you struggle with overthinking, if your thoughts feel loud, scattered, or toxic, don't start with trying to control your brain. Start by cleansing your gut. And there's no better way to do that, spiritually and physically, than fasting. Not just during Ramadan, but on Mondays, Thursdays, even just once a week, because when you fast, you return to your original design. You come back into harmony. And that's when the heart begins to whisper again. Not judgment, but peace. And there's no better way to do that, spiritually and physically, than fasting. Not just during Ramadan, but on Mondays, Thursdays, even just once a week, because when you fast, you return to your original design. You come back into harmony. And that's when the heart begins to whisper again. Not judgment, but peace. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like your soul was heavy? Not your body, not physical tiredness, but that deep internal weight you can't explain. That's the sign of a heart that's been ignored. The heart, not the beating organ, but the spiritual center, is the true seat of your soul. It's where connection lives, where sincerity lives. It's where you recognize truth, even before your mind can explain it. But just like anything valuable, it can be covered. Covered by sins. Covered by distractions. Covered by what you see, hear, and allow into your soul. The Prophet said, "When a person commits a sin, a black dot appears on his heart. If he repents, seeks forgiveness, and stops, the heart is polished. But if he continues, the dot spreads until the heart becomes completely black." Termity. So the real question isn't, why can't I feel peace? But rather, what's covering my heart from the peace that's already there? Because the heart is naturally pure. Allah created it that way, but it gets buried under noise. And the only way to clean it is through remembrance, Dhikr. You see, Dhikr isn't just a ritual, it's like spiritual light. Every time you say, Subhan Allah, you affirm that Allah is perfect and everything else is not. Alhamdulillah, you acknowledge your blessings and cleanse in gratitude. Allahu Akbar, you remember that nothing is greater than Him, not even your pain. Astaghfirullah, you wash your soul with forgiveness. These words aren't just sounds, they are medicine. They are Polish for a rusty heart. They are the light switch in a dark room. Think of it like this. Imagine sitting in a dark room filled with treasure, gold, diamonds, priceless beauty. But you can't see any of it because the lights are off. That's your heart when it's been forgotten. And every time you remember Allah sincerely, it's like turning on a light. A little more becomes visible. A little more warmth returns. Until one day, the room is glowing, and you realize everything you were chasing was already inside you. That's why the Qur'an isn't just meant to be read, it's meant to be absorbed. The names of Allah aren't just memorized. They're meant to transform you. When the heart is clean, you don't overreact. You don't overthink. You don't envy. You simply observe, reflect, and respond from truth. So if you've been feeling heavy, if your dua feels dry or your prayers feel distant, start polishing. Even one subhanallah with sincerity can begin that process, because the real light you're looking for is already within you. It's just been waiting to shine again. Life is always moving. Even the stillest rock is vibrating at the molecular level. Even the strongest tree sways in the wind. Even when you feel stuck, life itself is never standing still. So why do we fight it? Why do we cling, control, and force outcomes that are not ours to control? The truth is, most overthinking, anxiety, and stress doesn't come from life itself. It comes from resisting the flow of life. Think about it. When you try to plan every detail, when you replay every conversation, when you fear the future or regret the past, what you're really doing is trying to fight a current that Allah has already set in motion. You're in the river, but paddling upstream. And here's what no one tells you. Control isn't the goal, harmony is. There's a huge difference between forcing your way through life and learning to flow with the one who designed it. Look at the people who live with peace. They're not the ones who control everything. They're the ones who've learned to trust. Trust in their process. Trust in Allah's timing. Trust that what's meant for them won't miss. And what misses them was never meant for them. When you're in harmony with Allah, with your body, and with your heart, you start to move through life with a kind of divine rhythm. You don't react, you respond. You don't chase, you align. You don't fear, you flow. And suddenly, life doesn't feel heavy anymore. Even when it's hard, it's not confusing. Because now you're being guided, not just driven. This is what it means to truly let go. Not to become careless, but to become surrendered. The Prophet had the most stressful mission in human history, and yet his heart was always calm. Why? Because he flowed with revelation. He wasn't trying to control everything. He trusted Allah completely. And that's our blueprint. That's what it means to actually be in the world, but not of it. So next time you find yourself forcing things, forcing a relationship, forcing success, forcing the outcome you think you need, pause, shift your awareness, breathe into the gut, speak from the heart, and ask yourself, am I flowing with Allah's wisdom or fighting it? Because when you start to flow with life, life starts to open up in ways you never imagined. There's something we need to understand, something many of us were never taught growing up. You don't connect to Allah through the mind, you connect to Him through the heart. The mind can believe, the tongue can recite, but only the heart can know. And that's what your soul is longing for, not just faith, but knowing. The heart is where love for Allah is born, where trust is built, where sincerity lives. It's where you stop feeling like Allah is distant and start realizing He was always closer to you than your own breath. But a heart that's buried under distractions, sins, and overthinking can't feel that connection. That's why we fast. That's why we pray. That's why we sit in stillness and say Subhanallah again and again, not to earn something from Allah, but to uncover what's already inside us. The more we remember Him, the more we become like Him, not in essence, but in reflection. You become more forgiving, more merciful, more wise, more calm. That's why the most beautiful Muslims, the ones who truly radiate light, aren't always scholars or speakers. They're the ones who have clean hearts. Hearts that are soft, humble, quiet, loving. They've gone beyond the ego, the fear, the fake self, and found their way back to the truth they were created for. That truth is simple. You are not the thoughts you think. You are not the cravings you feel. You are not the shame you carry. You are a soul created to know your Lord. And once you stop living only in the head, once you align your gut, your mind, and your heart, you won't need to chase happiness. You won't need to force confidence. You won't need to beg for peace. You'll simply become who you already are. You've been given a gift, the ability to think, feel, reflect, and return. So return to presence, return to balance, return to your heart, return to Allah. Don't let this just be another video you watch and forget. Let this be the turning point, where your inner world finally comes into harmony. Fast, even if it's just once a week. Say Dhikr, even if it's just one name. Shift your awareness, even if it's just for a breath. These small actions bring big awakening. Comment below. I'm ready to make peace with my mind. Subscribe if you want more reflections on Islamic spirituality, self-mastery, and divine connection. And remember, you're not here to be perfect. You're here to be present and to remember the one who made you whole to begin with.